오빤 강남스타일 강남스타일 오빤 강남스타일
You're listening to Where You Live with Gene Sullivan.
Welcome back. This is Where You Live. I'm Gene Sullivan, broadcasting from the True North Painting Studios. The show's brought to you by American Family Insurance, the Kim Bennett Agency, and Extreme Exteriors. You can count on Extreme Exteriors for expert installation of exterior siding, roofing, soffits, fascia decks, windows, and more. With their knowledge and experience, they can design the perfect solution to make your home beautiful and energy efficient, saving you maintenance and money for years to come. Give them a call at 763-441-1334 and tell them Gene sent you. It's time now to hear from the Community Associations Institute. The CAI Minute is brought to you by New Concepts Rental Management. Whether you're an accidental landlord or a seasoned investor, New Concepts Rental Management can advise and guide you through every aspect of the business. Give us a call at 952-922-2500.
Are you a member of the Community Associations Institute? For nearly 40 years, CAI has provided education and resources to volunteer homeowners who govern community associations and the professionals who support them. Visit caionline.org to learn more. The address again is caionline.org. CAI helps community associations board members by providing online resources, in-person training, and hard copy publications written by association management experts. CAI offers community managers professional development, networking opportunities, and a certification program that is established as the industry standard nationwide. Minnesota has its own chapter of the Community Associations Institute to bring resources and tools from community associations around the country right to your home. Visit www.cai-mn.com to learn more and become a member of CAI today. Your community and management company will benefit from your involvement. Join the Community Associations Institute today at cai-mn.com and click on membership.
If you're just joining us, we're talking about the story that was in the Friday Around the Metro section of the Star Tribune concerning a boy's treehouse that had to come down. And it was kind of weird because the city of Minneapolis said, hey, it was built well. It was a sharp-looking structure. You just didn't talk to us beforehand, and you aren't open to making any corrections, so it's got to come down. But in the story, if you read it, there's the tearful final plea of the boy, and you can really build up. You can't help but build some sympathy, saying, "Hey, a young boy ought to be able to have a treehouse to be able to play in. Man, why can't that just happen?" And then as I began to think about things with the story a little bit more, I just realized, you know what, we have, when we live in a society, whether it's a homeowners association or in the city, everyone moving into a home that they purchase have covenants and restrictions that are placed upon them. People don't think about that. People usually think, if I buy a home in a homeowners association, they're the governing documents, the declaration and covenants, the bylaws, rules and regulations. But the same thing is true of every property purchased in any city, in any municipality, unless you are out in some unincorporated area far away from everyone else. There are going to be covenants that are going to be placed, because as soon as you get into close proximity with other people, there needs to be an agreement on how you're going to relate to one another, how you're going to act, what you can do and can't do in terms of having freedom, but not infringing or imposing your freedom on someone else's freedom. And that is what we had here. The neighbor was concerned not with the treehouse. They were a little bit with the height, because the height was a little bit higher than what the city would allow. So number one, if you're in the treehouse, you could look right into the window of this person's home and into bedrooms, and they were concerned about that. Number two, as they got higher up into the tree, and it was built between a V of two trees here, of two trunks, that tree on one side started to curve out, and the structure was actually built not just on this man's property, but into the neighbor's yard. So the structure was now built and also overhanging into the neighbors, and that was a problem and an issue too. The city brought the inspectors, and they said, yeah, these are two issues. And so we need to remember that there's a reason to have covenants and to have governing documents, to have some restrictions, is that there needs to be some limits that are in place. You can't have just total freedom for anybody to do whatever they want. And so the purpose is to create, of course, a limited set of laws, not an unending one, but a limited one, ordinance, so you know how, like I said, to interact and relate to one another. This idea, it's my house, it's my castle, no one can tell me what I can do. Yes, we all like the freedom that we have in home ownership and owning our own property, but living in society also means there are obligations and there are responsibilities that we have that go along with all of our rights. Okay? And it's important to understand that this whole issue here of this tree house wouldn't have been an issue, wouldn't have been in the Star Tribune if it hadn't been for the fact that the father of this boy who built the tree house did so without the express approval of the city of Minneapolis. Now, this is where I have, it's a little bit hard for me to have sympathy, at least from the father. We hear of the son and his tearful plea, let it stay, and it sounds like the city was being kind of harsh. But couldn't we put some of this upon the father's shoulders? Why did the father set up expectations that were unreasonable for his son to maintain? Because he didn't go through the purpose of talking to the city first. I'll give you an example. I live out in Eden Prairie, and my wife and I weren't even changing the size of our deck in the back of our home, but we were changing the floorboards because some of them were rotten. We're putting in a new railing. But we knew that we had to do two things. Number one, we live in a townhome association. So even though everything was going to be the same but just new, anytime there's a change that's going to take place, you need to notify your homeowners association. So I did, got their approval. They said, okay, this sounds good. Then I went to the city of Eden Prairie, and I had to pay, I think it was a $75 fee, and that's the cost to have someone come out and inspect it, and they inspected it before and inspected it after. And it was okay. Nobody came to me afterwards and said, hey, this has got to be torn down again. But this guy didn't bother to go through that. Had he gone to the city, he would have found out that you can only go so high. I knew that when I was building the railing, I had to put in a railing that was different than what was done before, because the code for the rails between that railing can't be more than a 4-inch opening, because young children can wiggle through there. Before that had been 6 inches a few years ago. Before that, 9 inches. But you need to know the reason, what the codes are and why. But he didn't even bother to do that. He would have found out that, oh, you can't build the structure so it hangs out over your neighbor's property. And the part of me got me to thinking while I was reading this article, who doesn't know that? Or should I say, who shouldn't really know that when you are building anything and you're living in a city? But had he done so, he would have been given the parameters, and the structure would have been done correctly. He wouldn't have had his boy, crying in front of city council saying, please don't take down my tree house. His son, more importantly, would continue to be enjoying and using the tree house, but all because of not asking. And he didn't ask because I guess he apparently didn't think that it was necessary. But again, I want to point out that whether you live in a single-family home, detached, or in a homeowners association, both are the same in that they both have covenants and restrictions that are placed on them. You need to know what they are before you move ahead, okay? And the other part that I think is important here is that what is important about being a great civilization? Well, what I think makes a civilization great is people acting civil, not people who are ranting and raving and protesting. And I'll say that didn't happen here. The man, when he realized that he didn't do it properly, he did start go through the appeal process. But in the end, because he ended up not getting his way, he's now going to have to take this down. And all of that grief could have been avoided. Had he just turned and asked, what are my responsibilities here first? I guess what I appreciate, too, the last thing here that I'd like to point out is that this whole process, again, as I said, took 2 years. And I think that is important, because for there to be a free society and for there to be something that is a consistent law that deals justly with everyone, I think it's necessary that justice in that whole process is a deliberate one. Sometimes it's going to take a while. It took 2 years to get to this decision. And I think that's important for a homeowner association to remember, too. Sometimes people take a look, and quick is the operative word. How come you can't get this homeowner to comply with the rules and regulations right away? You don't ever seem to get them to do anything. Well, sometimes this whole process is, if it's going to be a correct and just one, is going to be deliberate. Remember the words of Thomas Jefferson, who said, "The purpose of government is to be deliberate, not quick." Well, with that, we're going to take a break, but don't go away. Next, we've got a listener who has a question that they would like to ask on the show. Back after these messages.